AskReddit by Catherine Collective. What has been your biggest "I really thought I knew this person" moment? A guy I was kinda irregularly working with for 2-3 years as a student. We'd meet once a week in a cafe to talk through some project related issues. Was one day wanted by Interpol. Turned out he invited a random language teacher to his flat and decapitated her. He might have been an asshole, but there's a difference between an asshole and a murderer. I'd argue there is also a difference between a murderer and a decapitator. I had a friend of 18 years overdosed on heroin. None of us knew he did drugs. He didn't even smoke cigarettes. It was beyond shocking. I knew a couple had only recently gotten married. They were ultra-conservative Christians, didn't even have alcohol at their wedding reception. Husband traveled to the city for work, where she later found out he'd been exposed to a faster lifestyle. She found him dead in the bathroom from a heroin overdose. She never knew he'd even taken a sip of alcohol, let alone was a drug user. I tweaked the reporting system for a large payroll system to improve its runtime from 8 hours to only 2. Submitted the changes to the head programmer with all my testing results. She took all the credit, used my expertise, and told management I had nothing to do with the improvements after I called her out on her BS. Worked alongside of her for 5 years prior and thought we were friends. Always hide Easter eggs of authorship. Dude I went to high school with and hung out with in our little clique. He was arrested driving down to Daytona to meet an underage girl with tape and knives in his trunk. Deleted. Turned up at a party. A buddy of mine was there. Bodybuilder. He was taking steroids at the time. Door security at a rough Liverpool club. Hard bloke that you would not want to get the wrong side of. He was wearing a charming dress, impeccable makeup and amp, drinking a cocktail. The charming dress is why he doesn't skip leg day. When my wife cheated on me. Sounds really stereotypical, but she was the last person on earth I would have thought would do something like that. Can relate. Just honestly didn't ever see my ex-husband doing that. I was busy taking care of our 1-year-old daughter and he couldn't handle not being the center of attention anymore. Meanwhile, I was trusting him to give me the room to learn how to be a mother and grow alongside me as a father. He just didn't have the potential I thought he did, and it was pretty rough to come to terms with that. Good friend of mine, known each other since we were very young, etc. On the phone one day and he sends me a screenshot of a Reddit post he thought was funny. I joke about how now I'm going to go stalk his account, user visible in a comment, and he gets freaked out and hangs up. Thought it was strange, so checked out his account. He was active in some very disturbing subs talking about how he successfully seduced a 10-year-old girl and if there was anything actually legally wrong with doing things with her since he was also underage, 17. Me and best mate at the time reported him, but nothing came of it since they couldn't prove he had nefarious intent. Aware enough of his Reddit history to verbally freak out and hang up the phone. But not aware enough to just delete the account or the incriminating content first. Truly, dumbus. When my parents divorced, my dad introduced his girlfriend to my sister and me, a day later. It obviously meant he was cheating on my mom. I never forgave him for it. Oh wow, at least my dad had the decency to wait 2 weeks after the divorce to introduce me to his new wife, apparently mistress of 5 years. He was so proud to show off their wedding photos with his 3 new daughters, not taking into account his own children, who didn't know about any step family or wedding at all. New wife kept the house clear of any photos of us. And when I pointed that out to my dad, he claimed he never noticed, yelled at new wife about it, who said, "Calm down. They are in the console drawer. They're not good photos." Fine. I'll put them out. He worshipped her. I had no idea who he was anymore, or ever, for that matter. This is a funny "how did I not know this about you" moment. Several years ago, I was flipping around on the television and came across something or other about the band Disturbed. Just like that, out of nowhere, my husband started basically giving me a biography of every member of the band, as though it was all common knowledge. We had been together about 10 years at this point, and I had no idea he even liked Disturbed, much less knew so much about them. He'd literally never talked about it before. Surprised the heck out of me. My boyfriend does this with me sometimes. We'll be looking online at random stuff and I find out he's super into this show that aired 50 years ago on cable TV and will tell me how it changed his life with no prior knowledge on my end he even knew what it was. Lol. Minor compared to all of you, but I dated a guy who bragged about how smart and successful he was and made me feel like an idiot for sticking with one job for 5+ years. He said I was too financially conservative and not enough of a risk taker. He talked big about his salary and how important he was. It turns out that he was continually job hopping due to performance issues, bad decisions and boredom. Dated the son of my favorite teachers in HS. Everyone absolutely loved them. They were always involved in school events and class trips. One day I noticed these horrible scars on his back. These parents beat the shit out of him. That's so sad. I thought I knew my parents until I had my own kids. Now I feel like they're just people who were in the house while I was growing up a lot of the time. I can relate to that. After my mother died and my father remarried, he moved far away from my siblings and myself. In the past I thought that he was just someone who wanted to spend more time with his family but could not because of work, social obligations, etc. Now I realize he just doesn't really care about his children and grandchildren. In 8th grade, I went to school with a kid who was walking to his buddy's house to watch the Super Bowl. He came across one of his neighbors. She was 8 or 9 years old. He brutally murdered her, put the mangled body in a trash bag, threw her in a dumpster and then continued to his friend's house and watched the game as if nothing happened. Jesus. Worked with a dude for a few years. He got arrested for child porn and keeping his children locked in kennel cages. You think you know someone? My sister has always been selfish. She was spoiled terribly by my parents. It seemed as if things were better as she grew up and had her own family. She called me upset because her son's Cub Scout pack was accusing her of stealing money. She claimed they were terrible at keeping accurate spending records and she could prove that and that she in fact helped them get the books straight. She lied. She stole $10K from children because she thought no one would notice. She's a terrible human and I went no contact eventually. Similar situation with my sister. She always lacked empathy and only thought about herself. She would later go on to steal tens of thousands from our parents. If you knew her now you would never know she's essentially a criminal who temporarily destroyed multiple lives. While her actions resulted in long-lasting consequences still apparent today, our lives are by no means in the shambles she left them in years ago. She married into a small amount of money and has created an image she believes has erased her past. There are many of us who will never forget. One of my very closest friends. We did everything together. I referred to this girl as my sister. She had some severe mental health problems, and some people had warned me to keep my distance, but I loved her, and thought she'd never want to hurt me. Then one day, when she was drunk, she told me that if she ever committed suicide, she'd arrange it so I was the one to find her body. She trusted that I'd know what to do. She expected me to be flattered. Couple of years later, she tried to do exactly that, then was furious with me when I called 911. Yeah. I had an ex that threatened suicide when we broke up that was mad when I called for a health check and told them he threatened to kill himself. I've had too many people do that for real that I will not be responsible for someone else doing it. Deleted. Dude just wanted an excuse to kill someone if all it took was $3K. This happened back in June. I went to Europe with my family for 2 weeks. A friend of mine told me she'd watch my dogs and cat. I get home and find out that she hadn't been there in days. They had no water, no food, and one of my pups has severe allergies and she hadn't given her medications. She had literally eaten herself raw. She was missing tufts of hair and had sores everywhere. Suffice to say, we're not friends anymore. Oh. Forgot about the best part. I paid her $400 to take care of them, and instead, she spent that money on alcohol, weed, everything but my dogs. I've never hated someone so much. A friend I met at uni in first year while studying psychology. Friends for 6 years and far along in our journey of study. Very long pathway to become a registered psychologist here. We're both mums to young kids doing the study parent juggle. In regular contact, supporting each other with the study load. She had a breakdown and quickly spiraled into alcohol and meth addiction. From a very affluent family, supportive husband, walked away from her life, child protection involvement. Saw her earlier this year at her birthday party thrown by her family, and she is a shell of her former self, tweaking and twitching, paranoid, disorganized thinking and speech, completely psychotic. I'm grieving the loss of my friend. I'm so sad and I miss her so much. She's too far gone. I don't think she'll ever recover. I graduated, got qualified, just about to get my clinical endorsement. Sounds like my sister. I still grieve for what she was. I called my husband's best friend pleading for help for his opioid addiction that I thought just started about a year before. This friend lives on the opposite side of the country and grew up with him. I tell him about the situation and he goes, oh shit, he's into that again. Again? I had no idea. I thought I knew this man through and through. We were best friends for 8 years before we even started dating. We are now divorced. Safe to say I have some trust issues. I was friends with these two women at my old job. I was about 25 and they were late 30s and mid 40s. We got on pretty well and hung out after work too, so I thought we were cool. Gets to the week of my birthday, that's on the Friday, and every day they are doing a full-on countdown, hyping it up, telling everyone that comes into the kitchen about it. Bearing in mind I never brought it up. I don't really do office birthdays, but they'd found out off Facebook and decided it was a big deal. I didn't expect much TBF, like I wasn't hoping for presents, but it seemed obvious they must have something planned. Nope. Not even a card, not even a happy birthday. Came in on the Friday and they wouldn't even look at me, just kept glancing over and giggling to each other. Then end of the day comes and as I walk out they've got a crowd around their desks, still no happy birthday or even a goodbye turns. I hate adults who act like high schoolers. Best friend 15 years ago, paid for us to move to Colorado together, literally paid for everything. Soon as we were settled into a place he tells me he's always hated me and knew I had resources he could take advantage of. Colorado was his idea, but he sold it so well. Also, we had countless times hanging out, laughs, having each other's backs. There was never a reason to question this being my best friend. We never fought either. That was a tough one. Oddly happened to me 1 week into marriage number 2. It took 4 years for them to leave to follow their heart, which oddly coincided with when I finally stopped sharing my resources. Meanwhile, due to reproductive coercion, we have a child in common where they, on multiple occasions, have used as a pawn to extort money out of me. I am so disappointed that I was part of their get-rich scheme. I feel so sorry for the broken childhood we have given my child. A friend from middle school was killed in a home invasion. He was the burglar. My husband rolled over and went back to sleep after I got a call saying my dad was dead in the hospital. Had to drive myself. Always thought he'd step up when I needed him in the ways I stepped up for him. Turns out I should have asked. So, I'm still friends with somebody I dated for a little while 35 years ago. Now I feel old. We're close, even if we don't see each other much. My mom died last year, and I messaged my friend. She knew mom was sick. She called me 3 minutes later. I'd expect a spouse to show at least that much concern. My ex had called me to talk about the new woman he was seeing. He says she cooks and cleans but she's really not that pretty. She's kinda stupid too. She can't have intelligent conversations like we used to. All of a sudden it clicked. He's talked shit about every single person he knows, then turns around and smiles in their faces. That's two-faced stretch. I loved the hell out of my husband and thought we had a great golden lab black cat relationship. He was caught cheating online and having 10 plus different social media accounts, and he tried to blame it on COVID brain. When I pointed out it was before that, he just shrugged and said it is what it is. Still reeling. It is what it is. What a fucking asshole. I wish you a wonderful and fulfilling life that makes memories of him seem trivial in comparison. In college, I was close friends, I thought, with a girl for a couple of years. We were supposed to go see Schindler's List together, but she went with her boyfriend instead. I was hurt, but asked her how it was. She was like, it was okay, except that it tried to make the Holocaust look like it was a bad thing. I was like ? Turns out not only did she hate Jews, she also thought black people were inferior to whites. I had no idea. Kinda begs the question, what was she expecting that movie to be about? Ex-girlfriend revealed she was dragging a guy through court, framing him for rape. She said this when we were 10 months into dating. I recorded a conversation about it, broke up with her, and gave it to the police. Thankfully I never had to worry about her trying to frame me because I'm on a police report ratting her out. What a bro. Hope she rots in prison for that shit. My friend who I'd lived with, traveled with, and gave support to over many years turned her back on me when my 6-year-old daughter died. Didn't return my calls or attend the funeral. She rang to wish me a happy birthday 6 months later, leaving an answer phone message. I didn't reply. I'm sorry. My brother died a year ago and pretty much everyone I considered a friend didn't support me at all. My parents also have stopped seeing a lot of people. It's crazy how going through a death in the family causes a lot of people to abandon you when you need them the most. Ex-husband decided that if he wasn't a husband any longer, he wasn't going to be a father either. He hasn't tried to see his kids in 2 years. Hasn't paid one dime of child support. Never saw it coming. He was my best friend, and even though we were separating, I never in a million years would have thought he wouldn't see his kids anymore. I see that over and over again. A lot of women I know who get divorced are more saddened by the loss of parenting than their spouse. It's so hard to try and explain to their kids why they never see dad anymore. Knew a guy for about 6 months. Both of us are truck drivers. We talked about a lot of stuff, our kids, trucking, social issues, politics and the economy, you name it. 2 drivers stuck in their trucks with not a lot of anyone else to BS with. We're gonna talk. Met up one day to hang out and we are sitting outside one of our trucks just hanging out when one of our new drivers came by to chat. Talked for a bit. I laughed at something the newer driver said before he had to grab a trailer to go get another load of freight, when I noticed my original friend wasn't around. I found him and asked him what happened. He told me, I can't believe you find those racist words funny or even worth your time. When I asked him to elaborate, found out that he's a member of the KKK and staunchly against any race succeeding other than white. Close friends with a man for almost 10 years. He wanted more, I didn't. He is now incarcerated as a serial killer. You'll be dropping these 2 ND third sentence reveals with 0 warning. I've gotten whiplash like 5 times already. My ex-husband cheated on me, with men he met on Craigslist. Broke up, found out I was pregnant with his kid, tried to work it out but realized he's a pathological liar and will lie about anything. He is remarried to another woman now with 4 other kids. I feel like I never even knew who he really was. This one isn't too bad but it was surprising to me. Guy I worked with, different department but sat in an adjacent office, and I would shoot the shit at work frequently. We're from the same state, same sports loyalties, had a lot in common, made each other laugh, etc. Normal, personable guy. Found out he'd posted for a new position with the company in a different location. I was bummed he was leaving but happy for him and his family, it was a nice promotion. So I asked him about the job and his general future career plans, and it was like a switch flipped and I was talking to Patrick Bateman. He was obsessed with getting up that ladder and kept talking about the higher-ups' perception of him and how he needed the perfect position so that he could appear to be an exec quality manager. It was weird. Did it make you doubt all the other stuff? After seeing that, I'd start wondering if I ever had a genuine conversation with him or if he was just mirroring my own interests and sense of humor. When I got a collect call from Rikers from a friend whom I couldn't get a hold of for 2 weeks, I hung up and searched the internet for his case, since he couldn't talk about it on the tapped phone. He's now doing 75 to life for holding his children's mother hostage, raping her, beating her, and terrorizing her for 3 days. This is a guy I'd known since he was 13. Well, a couple of weeks ago my boss called me into her office and told me it was clear I thought she was a monster. It wasn't completely out of the blue in terms of weird interactions leading up to it, but that statement absolutely floored me. I don't think she's okay and I'm just trying to be very nice to her and applying for jobs. So highly inappropriate for her as manager. She's unstable. Be sure to report her before you leave and after you accept a new offer. My former best friend from high school. Her and her skeezy boyfriend turned husband went into my parents' room while they were waiting for me to finish up in the shower and stole all of their gold jewelry. I had loved this girl like a sister for years and in return she stole from my fucking parents for drug money. Last I heard her life sounded awful and I struggle with guilt because I don't feel bad for her one little bit. My childhood best friend. First time we met was the day after I was born. Years went by until I was like 16 and I realized she has been spreading rumors about me, using me as the ugly friend and in general using me to get what she wanted from life. NGL was very sad when I realized how narcissistic she actually is. Feel that. Had a friend since elementary school. Thought we were super close, but in reality, I was only second to literally anyone from his primary friend group. As time went on, I found out through some of his less shitty friends that I was commonly the butt of his jokes and other directed malice. Someone who I considered one of my closest friends that I'd known since I was like 2 pretty much let me get sexually assaulted by a friend of her boyfriend, and then accused me of lying about it even though she saw it happen. Suffice it to say we are not friends anymore. Long-term ex years ago. We'd been together for years. Changed colleges and moved to the state she was in to be closer to her. We were both already in kinda a funk before, but I'd been hit by a car on my bike and needed some outpatient surgery to fix my shoulder after a misdiagnosis and the severity of my trauma. Day of, she drops me off as expected. Wake up and after waiting for her to pick me up about 2 hours, post anesthesia, the nurses say I should just go wait in the waiting room so as to not rack up a larger bill. Took her another 2 hours to get there to grab me. I don't remember the exact excuse, but it was something like she had to grab lunch with some friends and lost track of the time. I'd been calling her in my messed up state. It was then I realized that she didn't actually care about me and I deserved better. I decided we needed to go on a break that week that lasted forever. Roughest time in my entire life. Realizing that my ex had been emotionally abusing, financially exploiting, and potentially even sexually abusive, and only started dating me because he thought that I was easy to manipulate. Realizing that I had fallen for his manipulation, believed his degradation of me even after he broke up with me and missed all of the obvious red flags. Still unraveling that shit. I wasted 1.5 years of my life and I'm gonna have to keep wasting more time trying to build myself back up and grow from this so that it doesn't happen again. It was my first relationship and I was so blind. Edit. He broke up with me because he realized that his bullshit wasn't having the desired effect of turning me into his perfect domestic goddess girlfriend and was just making me super depressed instead, and I guess he didn't want to clean up the mess he'd made. I only realized what he'd actually done to me a few months later. I got off relatively lightly compared to other people who've been abused, but I'm still scarred. I have a sweet and naive friend who married this type of guy and had kids with him. Took her a decade to get out. Be proud of yourself that you figured it out in 1.5 years. My ultra-conservative mother is prostituting on the side. Deleted. Sorry that happened, hope you'll get out safely. When a co-worker who I'd known for 4 years and thought was a close friend falsely accused me of sexually harassing her. Allegation was found to be false. She still works there and I ignore her now. Won't get in a lift or be on my own with her. WTF. Did she ever say why she did it? My now ex partner refused to spend Christmas with me while I was actively miscarrying our second unsuccessful pregnancy. Then sent pictures of him playing with his 1-year nephew. My period still terrifies me. Oh my goodness. My rage for you. Just wow. A friend of mine since high school, a dude I really trusted, came to live with me when he was down on his luck. This dickhead lived with me for 3 days before he stole a pistol from me and sold it for meth. Now he's sitting in prison and my gun is tied up in a federal case. Youngest brother died out of nowhere. On the surface he was a functioning adult with a good job. Turns out he had been a drug addict with a lot of debt for years and somehow managed to hold a job and seem fine in front of our family. My high school sweetheart. We were very on and off for most of our 20s. The man wouldn't commit to me and I stupidly stuck around. We basically were in a situationship, so asked him to please tell me if he ever met someone else and started to see them. Because I couldn't bear the humiliation of being the last to know. It was basically me saying, if you meet someone, fine. But tell me so that I can walk away immediately. Guess what? He met someone else and snuck around with her for 2 months before I found out from one of his friends. Objectively I am sure anyone would say that, of course he did. But knowing him, I was shocked. I really didn't think he was a liar like that. Still hurt but showed me his true colors finally. He was never going to tell you. His being non-committal was everything you needed to know. He was using you until he found somebody that he wanted to commit to. Almost every moment since my ex-husband announced he was cheating on me and wanted a divorce has been an "I really thought I knew this person" moment. If I hadn't watched him go from what he was to what he is now over the last year, I wouldn't have believed it. His partner has changed him from what he's comfortable with to something he's so uncomfortable with, at least from my observations, that it's unreal because that's what his partner wants. X says he wants to be friends and I feel like I have tried to be his friend, but I recently told him I don't think I can be his friend as long as he's with his current partner, who I don't really care for because of the way they've treated X and used him as a cash cow. An ex used to brag that he always remained friends with his exes. Eventually I noticed that the only who remained a friend was one woman who really wanted him back and he knew it and used it against her. I'm not friends with him but I'm pretty sure that he's told everyone that we're still great friends. Whenever I run into his friends I make a point of never mentioning him. A fellow RN who stole out of my purse. Circumstances all pointed to her. I thought we were friends.